All right, welcome to the Golden Belt Buckle Podcast. Thank you for joining me. And as usual, you know the drill. Every single video that you watch of somebody, they always do the same thing. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Excuse me. Personally, I am aware that every video I do is someone's very first impression of me. So I take your subs very seriously. I don't take anything for granted. So I was reading through my comments. That's a risky thing to do. I tell you what, I get lambasted really bad sometimes. But, you know, they're not all bad. Anyway, one commenter, we were talking about Harjinder Singh, and they said, one person says they're getting 4 years, another person says they're getting 45 years. Like, what's true, right? And now, I'm not a lawyer, but I have wondered about the same thing, and I've been trying to think ahead of all of this stuff. And as I get more into this and more details come out, you know, now you got his family and friends back in Punjab. They're wanting leniency by the judge. They're basically pleading for Harjinder's life. And you've got different sides in this country. You've got, I don't know if people knew this, but there's not only a petition to for fair sentencing, leniency on behalf of Harjinder Singh, but there's also a petition which I just checked again. As of 5 hours ago, it was up, but now it's down. It's under review. It's called "Deport the Supporters of Harjinder Singh's Commutation." So you've got two. I'm surprised. The one has actually over 3 million signatures, and the other one had 86,000. That kind of shocked me. But that petition asking for deportation of all his supporters or those who want his charges commuted, that one has been taken down. But when I looked at these both when they were up, they both had a lot. Actually, every single one of the names of the most recent donors, they were all East Indian on both sides. So there's a reminder here. Now, I don't care what side someone is on. I don't advocate for violence against anybody. Absolutely not. If we got an issue, we try to change laws. So, but it's just a reminder. There's a lot of people from India that are both in the United States and in Canada legally, and they're getting caught up in all of this. They don't like illegal immigration or bad drivers any more than anybody else does, right? So, I mean, I've been trying to get back to the story about that guy from Toronto who went on that rant, and his interview has gone viral over the internet. And I just haven't been able to get back to it, right? There's a lot I want to talk about with that because he said a lot of good stuff. For those of you who don't know, I'm Canadian, so but I drive a lot in the United States. So there's a stake in understanding all this stuff as far as I'm concerned. So, but yeah, so there's a lot of East Indians that are legal citizens of both countries here, and they're getting crapped on. Anyways, in answer to that guy's question, I wish I could remember who it was. I should have taken a screenshot. We're going to talk about the charges, and I'm going to get into this, and we're going to talk about how this could turn out. Right? We're going to talk about reality. I try to talk about reality. If you're the type of person that likes reality and not emotions, this is the channel for you. You'd be one of the very few, actually. I have been called a liberal. I have been called a Trumper. I've been told I hate my country for my views. It all depends what story I'm covering, what day I'm talking, where the evidence leads. And whoever watches that day will think one thing. I'm just following things where they go. So let's get into this. What is going to happen, in my armchair opinion? Let's try to do something that Bruce Rivers, criminal lawyer, would be proud of here. So the charge is vehicular homicide. it carries with it a 15-year max and a 9-year and 3-month minimum mandatory sentence. This sentencing, the judge has the discretion to run the sentences concurrently or consecutively. Concurrently means they go beside each other. Consecutive is one after the other. So 15-year maximum times 3 is 45 years. 15-year maximum concurrently is 15 years. Get it? So one runs beside, one runs concurrently. You get the one that runs, if you get sentenced to consecutive, if he did, he would be an old man by the time he got out of prison, by the time he's deported. If they run concurrently, he'll be out by his early 40s. And this is like if he got the max and it went concurrently. So that's the charge, is vehicular homicide. Vehicular homicide is defined under Florida Statutes Section 782-071. The penalties for this offense can be severe, including lengthy prison sentences, hefty fines, and permanent criminal record. Now let's go. I'm going to read the charge just so we know where we're at here. Vehicular homicide is the killing of a human being or the killing of an unborn child by any injury to the mother caused by the operation of a motor vehicle by another in a reckless manner likely to cause the death of or great bodily harm to another. Vehicular homicide is a felony of the second degree. So, now, that's the charge. That is the charge. Best case for prosecution would be if they got 3 consecutive sentences, so 15, 15, and 15, right? 45 years. That would be their best case scenarios, that the maximum amount of time running consecutively. Now for the defense, let's assume they don't, well, let's not assume anything. Best case scenario for the defense is that they get the charge lessened from vehicular homicide to careless driving, okay? Because now if that were to happen, we have a completely different discussion. But assuming they don't get that, the best case scenario for the defense is to have the minimum sentence given to their client running concurrently. So that would be the minimum sentence for vehicular homicide is 9.3, so 9 years and 3 months running concurrently. So that'd be that would mean he's out of jail before he's even 40 years old. If that was to happen. He's 28, so he'd be 37? He'd be 37 years old if it was to be settled today. And he's so that's the best case for both. Prosecution will frame Harjinder as a remorseless monster who has a record of ignoring the law. So he's an illegal alien. They'll portray him as someone who's remorseless. You know, you saw the video of him where he's just looking at the camera. They'll probably argue it's pretty obvious what he did. I mean, look at when you define vehicular homicide, it's killing of a human being caused by the operation of a motor vehicle by another in a reckless manner, likely to cause the death. Well, what he did looked pretty reckless, right? To any of us sitting on the outside, this was obviously a case of reckless driving. He's on a busy freeway and he just decided he wanted to turn around in the middle of the road. Well, it looks obviously like it's reckless driving to me, right? And millions of others. So not only did he do that, but then after the accident, he just had that deer in the headlights look. So they'll portray him as a remorseless felon, basically. He came to the U.S. by gaming the system. And it shows that this guy here he just has a pattern of bad behavior, basically. Right? They want to make him look really bad, and they'll also argue that he failed the English proficiency test. So look at this guy; he's out of service. It's like driving with your brakes out of adjustment, right? And you know they're out of adjustment. You know the law, you know they're out of adjustment, you're not ignorant of it, but you drive that truck anyways. You're driving an out-of-service vehicle. You just haven't got caught for it yet. Likewise, Harjinder, he can't read and speak English or understand road signs well enough to be operating a vehicle, which means he's out of service. He's not even supposed to be there. And if he had just obeyed the law, hung his license up, and learned English, learned how to read English, then this wouldn't have happened, right? That's what they're going to say. He wouldn't have been there. And then on top of that, they're probably going to pick his logbook apart, right? If he hadn't had his if he's out of hours, if he's been driving out of hours, well, he just shouldn't have been there, right? So they're going to do everything they can to show how reckless this guy is, right? It's pretty obvious. But now we come to the defense, and this is when I said reality. This is where the dose of reality comes in. At the end, I'll get into it. And again, if we're going by emotion, that's one thing, right? If we're going by what the average person sees on the outside, that's one thing. Law is another. So the defense, they will probably remind everybody that Lady Justice is blindfolded for a reason. So justice does not judge someone by their race, color, or creed, right? She's holding a pair of scales, meaning she is to judge by the weight of the evidence only, not in the court of public opinion, and not because someone wants to make an example of them, right? They'll argue that contrary to Harjinder Singh being a remorseless, psychopathic criminal who is a mastermind gaming the system, they'll argue probably that he's a good son who's a victim of circumstance, who sends money back to his parents and did what he had to do out of fear for his life, which was to run away, right? And they'll probably go into Sikh culture to show how Sikh men are naturally meant to, like they're encouraged to be stoic. They'll probably bring out the letter that he would have had with his asylum request that he would have got from his local politician. I went into that in an earlier video, testifying that he's afraid for his life. And then they'll rip apart the driver. They'll bring in expert testimony from mechanics. They'll bring in crime scene reconstruction, and they'll say, well, our mechanics looked at the brakes of this car. And wouldn't you know it, the brake pads were worn down to 50%. And the crash scene expert, look, you put this together, the crash scene expert he demonstrated that this guy was speeding. So here you got a van, he's speeding down the highway with brakes that are only operating at 50%. All right? And on top of that, this van driver, they have a history of speeding. They've got a history of distracted driving. And how do we know this? By looking at their driver record. Now, none of what I'm saying right here is, I don't know if this is true. I'm just hypothetically, this is what I think they're going to argue. So they're going to tear apart that driver. They're going to tear apart the accident scene. They're going to look at the video and say, look, do you see him actually braking in that video? No. So like they're going to make it look like the driver of the car was themselves driving reckless. See if I can get my get over here. So, intervening cause. An intervening cause defense involves demonstrating that another factor independent of the driver's actions was the primary cause of the accident. This could include actions by another driver, pedestrian, or even an animal suddenly entering the roadway. So, like this whole thing about ripping apart the other driver would be, look, it would be like this. Yes, Harjinder did something stupid, and yes, he's got to serve some time for what he did. But had that person driving the minivan, had they not been speeding, had their brakes been working properly, had they not been distracted, then they would never have hit the guy because they would have saw him turning well in advance. And even if they didn't, the brakes would have been working well enough for them to stop in time. And if they hadn't been speeding, well, again, maybe their Brakes working at 50% would have stopped. They'll say whatever they can to rip apart this driver, right? And then they'll probably close by arguing that Harjinder Singh, he has suffered enough. The process is the punishment. Let's talk for a minute about the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. What is the point of the vehicular homicide law, right? Is it not to discourage people from driving recklessly? Is that not what the spirit of the law is? I mean, the letter of the law, we know what that is. You drive this way, you get 15 years, right? But let's talk about the spirit. If it's meant to prevent people from driving recklessly, hasn't the process already punished him enough? Hasn't the process of his eventual deportation, his public humiliation, his incarceration, hasn't all of this, the utter vitriol that everybody has against him, millions of people wanting him dead, talking about it online, hasn't that been punishment enough for him? Has that not fulfilled the spirit of the law? That's probably what they're going to argue. And then they'll go into precedents. And they will argue, they'll say, take a look at Noah Galley. Noah Galley was drag racing his car, recording a video for TikTok. He ran into a van and he killed 6 farm workers. Did he get 45 years? Did he get 30? Did he get 20? Did he get 15? No. He killed 6 people, and he got 12 years. And then they go on to say, the West Palm Beach Chief Assistant State Attorney Al Johnson says, consecutive sentences for each count are almost never imposed by the courts unless a defendant has significant prior record of crimes. Does Harjinder have a significant record of prior crimes? Now, of course, the prosecution will say, yeah. I mean, he kind of entered he entered the country illegally. This is just kind of a look at it. The defense is going to rip apart that other driver, rip apart the driver's vehicle mechanically. They're going to appeal to the letter of the law, the spirit of the law, and they're going to appeal to precedent. And the precedent, what this person says here, but this broad sweeping generalization that vehicular homicides are rarely doled out in consecutive terms or sentences for each count, well then it looks like precedent is on Harjinder's side. So this is where the dose of reality comes in. What looks obvious to everybody on the outside is not obvious to people who deal with law. The public can obviously see what he did was reckless, but under the law, they get in there, all they got to do is put a reasonable, they're chipping away at the reasonable doubt, right? Because for him to be convicted of this crime, he has to be convicted beyond a reasonable doubt. And so when lawyers get involved, they chip away at the evidence. Next thing you know, there is reasonable doubt. So what's my prediction? I'm going to say don't get excited. If this other guy got 12 years for killing 6 people when he was drag racing, I wouldn't hold my breath for this guy to be serving 45 years. The governor wants to throw the book at him. The public wants to throw the book at him. But can you convince a jury to throw the book at him? Can you convince the judge to finally throw the book at him? That's a different story. That's all I got. If you like the content, like and subscribe, watch my other videos. Lambaste me in the comments or agree with me. I prefer you to lambaste me instead of each other. I'm just the talking head, so I guess I get the anger. Anyway, cheers, take care. Keep the rubber side down.